In 1948, sitting Democratic President Harry Truman made an incredible offer. He was willing to step aside and run as vice president, provided one specific man would take the top of the ticket: Dwight Eisenhower. Ike turned him down, but 4 years later, he entered the race as a Republican and crushed Truman's party in a massive electoral landslide. The American public already knew him as the Supreme Allied Commander, the general who oversaw the D-Day invasion. In the anxious early days of the Cold War, the nation was searching for exactly that kind of steady, proven leadership. Voters across the spectrum saw a decorated commander rather than a partisan campaigner, leaving opposition parties with almost no room to land a political blow. Eisenhower chose the Republican ticket partly to prevent a one-party monopoly. The Democrats had controlled the White House for 20 straight years, and he believed a healthy democracy required competition. The grassroots demand for him at the convention was overwhelming. His campaign modernized political advertising, running the first televised presidential ads featuring the catchy "I Like Ike" jingle. It worked perfectly, securing a decisive victory over Democratic nominee Adlai Stevenson. Winning an election is one thing. The question now was how a career military man with zero civilian political experience would govern a rapidly modernizing, complex nation. Eisenhower's governing philosophy became known as the middle way. He applied a strict military discipline to the federal budget, keeping spending in check, while actually expanding popular New Deal social programs. He broadened Social Security and created the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. This map shows his enduring physical legacy, a sprawling network of concrete and asphalt. The Interstate Highway Act connected major cities like never before. Hidden behind this was military logic, enabling rapid urban evacuation and swift mobilization in the event of a Soviet nuclear strike. While conceived as a national defense measure, these highways effectively remapped the American landscape, accelerating cross-country shipping, sparking the rise of suburban housing, and fueling record-breaking consumer demand. That same military mindset dictated his response to domestic constitutional crises. When the Supreme Court mandated the desegregation of public schools, several southern state governments fiercely defied the order. Instead of getting bogged down in drawn-out political negotiations, Eisenhower acted as commander-in-chief. He federalized the National Guard and sent the 101st Airborne Division straight into Little Rock, Arkansas. With combat troops holding the perimeter, the federal law was strictly enforced, ensuring the African-American students could safely attend school. Following this showdown, he signed the Civil Rights Act of 1957. It was the first piece of federal civil rights legislation passed since Reconstruction. Eisenhower didn't treat defiance of the Supreme Court as a simple political disagreement. He treated it as military insubordination, and he cracked down with overwhelming federal force. Overseas, his first major objective was stopping an active conflict. Within months of taking office, he secured a formal armistice to end the bloody, stalemated ground fighting in Korea. To prevent future ground wars, his administration developed a grand strategy known as massive retaliation. Instead of matching Soviet forces soldier for soldier, the United States would deter communist expansion by threatening an overwhelming nuclear response. Beneath that nuclear umbrella, Eisenhower fought the Cold War in the shadows. He relied heavily on the newly formed CIA to conduct covert operations, quietly removing governments in Iran and Guatemala without deploying conventional troops. When traditional allies, Britain and France, escalated a conflict in the Middle East over the Suez Canal, Eisenhower refused to send troops. Instead, he used severe financial and diplomatic pressure to force them to withdraw and halt the fighting. This combination of nuclear deterrence, covert action, and diplomatic arm-twisting kept America out of costly major wars. It kept the federal budget balanced, and it ultimately secured his massive landslide re-election in 1956. That quiet was momentarily shattered by a silver sphere in low Earth orbit. The launch of the Soviet Sputnik satellite triggered widespread panic that America was rapidly losing the Cold War technology race. Eisenhower responded with military precision. He directed a top-down institutional mobilization, creating NASA to consolidate the civilian space program and DARPA to ensure American military technological supremacy. By combining high-tech federal research with newfound highway mobility and a balanced federal budget, Eisenhower provided the structural support for a decade of record growth. By the end of his tenure, American families enjoyed a quality of life that was the envy of the industrialized world. As his 2 terms drew to a close in 1961, the outgoing president delivered a nationally televised farewell address. He used his final moments in office to deliver a grim warning to the public. He cautioned against the unchecked rising political power of the weapons manufacturers and defense contractors, what he termed the military-industrial complex. The man who had led the largest amphibious invasion in human history, the most decorated general of his generation, was leaving the White House by begging the American people to keep a close eye on the defense industry. Retiring to his farm in Pennsylvania, Eisenhower spent his final years painting peacefully, a quiet pivot away from a lifetime surrounded by war. The idyllic calm of the 1950s wasn't a lucky accident. It was a carefully orchestrated balance, maintained by a career soldier who intimately understood the horrific costs of conflict, and who spent 8 years proving that true strength lies in the discipline to show restraint.